Welcome to Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries. I am Vicki Todd, and together with Dr. Pat, we will learn to push the boundaries of our minds, to think delusionally, and create fertile ground for our big dreams to seed, grow, and manifest. Each episode, we will gain more ability to think delusionally and cultivate beyond boundaries faith that we can accomplish dreams which seem unreachable. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. You are born with dreams, gifts, and talents you are meant to use to make this world brighter. Let your delusional dreams shine. It all starts now.
OMG, I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to take this beautiful wild ride with the most incredible, let me just say, artist of multidimensional nature, Vicki Todd. Today, love this topic, just love it. Calling all Crones, time to shine. Vicki, you know, when I first came on here, Sierra is our producer, I was like, Yahoo! I'm so excited about this topic. So, okay, usually when we come up with the topic, something has hit a nerve, right? So
Yes.
what nerve got plucked for you?
I just turned 60. And so I am one of those wackadoo people that I still get very excited about birthdays.
Yeah, me too.
So I just wanted to start with some encouragement
Okay.
because 10 years ago, right at this exact time when I had just turned 50, several months before that, I had quit my tenured professor job to pursue my dream of art. I was living in Connecticut. I had zero plan, freaked out, didn't know what was going to happen. And if you would have told me that 10 years into the future, I would be living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which has been a dream since the 1990s, doing my art. If you would have told me that I was going to sculpt clay, which I didn't even think of doing until 2018, if you would have told me that I was going to create body prints, meaning putting paint on my torso, making a print of it, and then creating things. My painting behind me, the deer body, is a recent body print that I just finished last week. And turning that into a one-woman show that I wrote and performed. And now that's everything with that. The art, the stories are being put into an ancestral memoir. I would have said, "You're crazy, Pat. How can any of that happen?" So I just wanted to throw out the encouragement. Never say never to your delusional dreams.
Yeah. And thank you for that opening because it just keeps popping up here, there, and everywhere. And I had a conversation with somebody, a show earlier today, and we were talking about how we live our lives. And this is one of the things I want to point to, because when you go back 10 years and I go back 10 years, or however we want to go back, it's eye-opening to see that whatever it was we were going through has prepared us for not just today, but for tomorrow and thereafter. What do you think of that?
Absolutely, nothing is ever wasted. And I am not near where I want to be.
I
But
know.
I'm much better than where I was 10 years ago. So, it's an awesome journey. And there's bumps along the way, and there's tears along the way, and there's doubt and fear, and oh my God, what's going to happen along the
Yeah.
way? But keep on going with it. It's going to happen.
And it is time to step in. It's interesting. I was so blessed to have a mentor, Sidonia Cahill, and really considered a crone. I mean, that was like the goddess priestess crone,
Yeah.
Sidonia, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue about what any of that meant back then. That was 1997. I was like, what? You're crazy. I just like, I don't even get it. I get it now.
Yeah.
But these are stories we tell. So let's talk a little bit about the crone and the magic power. And I just want to put a caveat out there. People are emailing me. I got like a really interesting email this morning because I've been attracting ravens. So they come, they sit on the little brick fence. And when they don't come, I kind of miss them. And so there are stories around that. But it's about magic power, wisdom, purpose. All of these can happen. It doesn't have to be a box that gets crossed out on your life journey, does it?
No. And if you're thinking that the box is going to go in order like A, B, C, and D, okay, I'm checking off the box. It doesn't work like that. God is going to take you from A to S and back to E and then up to Z maybe. So it's really a journey. It's really something that you can't say, I'm going to get on the train and go from point stop A to stop B. It just doesn't work like that. But that's the magic of it. And I think that's where, the Cronus comes out, Croness. And I love, the idea of the ravens because they're between worlds. They're between, the spirit world that knows all this wise woman stuff and bringing that into our world. And so all of that. And I have to say, one of my mentors that is helping me, as I write this book over the next year, I had mentioned that I was about to turn 60, and she goes, "Oh, that's the age when you step into your elder slippers." And I was like, "What? I've never heard that."
Totally.
And so that just really got me excited. So,
Yeah.
we can be teacher,
Yeah. I'm
help
telling you,
people.
I just coming up to a birthday this year, and I'm going to turn that stepping into the I'm going to flip it up from stepping into a new orange pair of table tennis shoes, if I may.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go.
But this is where most of us now, it's been really hard for me, Vicki, to come out and talk story, and it just is time to give people a context for how I got here and to just share some things of an early life and things I learned. And I was very private, so I never shared it. And I understand, I know about what it's like for you to come out now
Mhm.
with your work, with the one person show. I don't even have, we don't even have time to talk about the body art today. But let's talk about story. Let's talk story. You have a story to tell. Story
Yeah.
of seven women trees. This is
Yes,
so
I love
good.
this so much. Well, of course, when we're talking crone as the wise woman, the magic woman, the woman who's sharing all this experience, I went back to Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and I remembered that I had a CD set of her stories about the dangerous old woman. And so one of the stories in there is the story of seven women trees. And she said that she had gone to this book and seen seven trees that were women and turning into trees. And what she thought she saw was the youngest woman, the youngest tree was this little sapling with very few leaves and kind of, wispy, not very substantial. And it went on up to the seventh tree that was this beautiful, mature tree with deep roots and gnarled, twisted, just really great, interesting pattern of the trunk and a huge canopy of tons of leaves and fruit and flowers. And so in her mind, she was like, yes, that's the mature woman. That's the dangerous old woman crone that has all of this experience. She's the best version that she's ever been. She's her soul version. And she has all of this experience to give back to people. Well, when she went back and looked in the book, it was the exact opposite than what she thought, her mind has shown her. And so the oldest woman in the book was this bent over bare tree, like an old woman kind of barely making it. And she thought, wow, the first version was my soul's version to say this is who you truly are. The second version is sometimes the culture's version to say you're old and now you're invisible. I hate the idea. I see it sometimes on Facebook. Articles will come up about the invisible older woman, and I roar against that. I think that is BS.
But this is kind of the interesting place we are in the world where
Mm.
we're so eager to grab a category or grab a label. And I shared on an earlier show today, I had a couple of people reach back out. They heard me share something on a show, and they didn't reach back out with support. They reached back out with a real fear statement.
Okay.
And so I just, it was, I took gabapentin for quite a long time because of my knees, because they forgot to take me off. Now the news is coming out about gabapentin, about dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm like, I'm not taking that in.
Yeah.
Don't email me. Don't call me. That's not my path. I have
Yeah.
a lot of things that I can do. And it
Hmm.
sounds like when we share that information, it's so terminal and we forget about the possibilities. So, what I would love for you to talk about, especially in that story, is going from those kinds of thoughts about Crone to crossing that Crone line and
Yes.
stepping into the world of possibility.
Yes. I had a great phone call just a few days ago that I want to add in. I want to give my brother a shout out. The idea with passing the crone line in this Dangerous Old Woman CD stories, the thought was that nature shows us. We've talked about snakes, ravens, all this kind of stuff from nature giving us direction. Well, she was talking about that, when you have an earthquake that really, destroys the earth, it creates a mountain, or a very destructive fire with a sequoia tree that makes the pine cones drop and breaks out the seeds, and it clears a path on the ground for the seeds to go in. And so sometimes, as we get older, of course, we're going to go through these very, difficult, just, heart-wrenching, can I make it through moments. And my brother, who's 8.5 years older than me, I don't know what you call a male version of a crone, but his life partner of 40 years just had a stroke, and she's in the
Mm.
hospital, and will be there for probably a while. And of course, I'm praying for a complete healing no matter what. But he's had his own health issues, mobility issues, and he said two things to me, and it goes along with what we're talking about, the toughness versus tenderness. The toughness, you have to learn from your experiences, and you have like a fork in the road to say, am I going to let this get me down to the point that I'm victimized and I just can't go on? Or are you going to kind of come out of that and say, you know what? This sucks, but I'm going to learn from it, take it in, and see how I can go forward doing better. And he told me, we are not going to sit here and say, oh, I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to do this. He said, we're starting with the here and now, and how can we adjust? And to me, that was the toughness, the situation, and using it in a positive way. He also told me this story that she has family there, and they're, constantly wanting to visit and talk and not really giving her rest. And he went after everybody had left and took his Kindle because he's an avid reader. And he said, all I did was I pulled up my chair to where she could see me. I held her hand and I just sat there and read in silence. And every once in a while, she would look up, wake up and see that he's still there. And I thought, oh my God. Because, he's a farmer, rancher, West Texas
Yeah.
guy. And if you saw that, all you would see is kind of toughness on the outside, but his tenderness to say, where's the joy? What can we take from this? What is laughter? And he called to tell me what was happening, but we spent 3 hours on the phone, yes, talking about that, but also just laughing together.
Yeah.
So he's a great example of going through something and balancing that toughness and tenderness. So, yay, brother.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great shout out. I mean, I think it's so fortunate we have people in our lives we can have that conversation with. Many of us, I'm very blessed to have a best friend that I've known for so long, right? I mean, it's almost as long as I've been on the planet. And, I don't even understand where I would be without that relationship because, you know, she saved my life more than times that I can remember. But every once in a while, you just need to bounce something off of, don't you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it's nice when you have somebody. I would say that my brother, since both of my parents are gone, we don't talk often, but when we do talk, the
Mm,
3 hour conversation last week, usually it's
yeah,
2 hours. Um, but that's kind of a touchstone, somebody that knows you really well. And even though our personalities are very different, he's a very grounded Taurus. I'm an airy fairy Libra, artistic Libra, but our minds think, very much in the same direction. And so I like having that
yeah.
touch.
I love it. I mean, I want to talk about a couple of things here that really move us forward. And it's kind of like the comment that was made to me. I mean, there are ideas out there that can be imposed on you if we let them. For example, you're turning 60, many ideas of what either society or other people, but then look at you. Look at the artwork behind you, Vicki. Look at
Yeah.
the sculptor. The sculpture piece. I mean, my God, it's just beautiful, 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 highly creative. And yet, we can get dropped these little seedlings of rat poisoning along the way,
Yes.
not to harm us, but by people who are afraid and
Yeah.
afraid for us. What do
Yeah.
we do with that?
Well, you reminded me another thing that my brother has always said, because his physical stuff of not being quite as mobile, he's kind of taken that in that he received all the arthritis from our Granny Todd. He received this and that, from whatever family member. And I'm always the one to say, nope, I reject that. That's not mine. And we kind of have a dark sense of humor in our family. And so when my mom got delusional dementia, he said, you can have that one. And I said, oh no, that is not mine. And so I think there's a power in okay, yeah, I could have this because it was, both my parents had it, but I reject that. I'm going to say I am healthy, I am strong, doing those I am statements, saying them out loud. So, when people come up and say kind of a negative thing or that medication is going to do this to you, that to you, what are you going to do about it? Like you said, I'm not going to take that in, So,
Not, no,
yeah.
no, no. I mean, because, what I said to my friend jokingly was, well, let me just tell you this. I also play a sport that science now says can not only reduce dementia, but could stop and almost reverse Alzheimer's. And they just looked at me like, what? And then I just kind of moved on. And the reason that I say that is because even a conversation is way too much. But this was a friend of mine that was very worried. And
Mhm.
so, sometimes we have to take that step and listen to people because they're coming from such a place of heart. I want to talk to you about this idea now, with all of what we've said in mind. This idea now, there's a movie, a television series that I've got hooked on. It's called Matlock.
Okay.
And I got hooked on it. And, it's Kathy Bates. But
Yes.
there's a line that goes over and over and over in it that I've started to realize, and that's what I want to talk to you about next.
Okay.
Wise woman, wild woman, twin archetypes. So here's the line. She says over and over again, both things can be true,
Oh, I love that. I
right?
love that. Yes.
Because
Well,
that's what we're talking about. Why do we have to be like this or this
mhm.
pigeonhole? Well, I don't get it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
explain this.
okay. Well, again, this is from the Dangerous Woman CDs, and I know we have the wise woman archetype. I know we have the wild woman archetype, but what she said was that they're really twins, and we have to have both. And I've never thought about them being, something that's yay, Wonder Twins activate that we need both of them inside of us. But the wise woman, of course, is that deep knowledge, maybe ancestral knowledge, knowing what your gifts are, how you can use them. The wild woman is, ooh, I had this really great dream last night. What does that mean? You're seeing the ravens. What are they telling me? What are my gifts and talents that I can use? And I'm excited. How can I shift and change and, try something new? And so I have another shout out to a family member. My Aunt Ruth, who is my mom's older sister, she died 2 or 3 years ago. She was also an artist. And so, again, 10 years ago at Christmas 2015, when I'm totally just kind of floating and lost, we had the tradition of going to my aunt and uncle's house for Christmas Eve. And she has a huge family, kids, grandkids, great grandkids. Neither my brother and I have kids, and so our family is really small. And so it's hard to get attention with my Aunt Ruth, right? Well, somehow that Christmas, when I most needed it, I had a magical 10 minutes with her, just, kneeling next to her chair by the kitchen table. And she knew I had quit my job. And like I said, she's also an artist, and she knew that I was wanting to pursue art. And she said, Vicki, it's okay to quit your job if you're not happy. Your Uncle Pat did the same thing. And she said, the ancient Hebrews had rocks that they put along their journey, along their milestones to show their accomplishments, what was, the important things in their lives. And she said, your art and writing are your milestones and use them to make others happy. And then all of a sudden, grandkids swooped in and it was over. And so I kind of stood up and I was like, whoa, that was a chunk, a nugget of wisdom that I am tucking deep in my heart and taking with me. So that was her wise woman coming out. But she also had that wild woman because I remember when I was young and they lived out in the country in Texas, she had painted her living room ceiling black and had painted like inch wide polka dots all over it. And my mom was like, "What is she doing?" And when my uncle, he worked in DC for 11 years in the agricultural office, and when they retired, he went around the country speaking. And so they got to Winnebago, and she went with him. Well, she's a China painter, and she had a small kiln that you could plug in with a regular plug. She took it in the Winnebago and would take it into hotel rooms, and she kept doing her art practice. And I'm like, I wonder if the hotel people knew that you were using a kiln in the room. But she had that blend of wise and wild and was able to share that with me to give me that push, to say, yes, keep going.
And we need that. I mean, that's part
Oh,
of this
yeah.
journey because, just in the short time that you and I have returned back together, I've just seen the many, many things that have come to light for you that have really gone from, an idea or something you wanted to do to reality. And, and this is what I love about this because haven't you heard in the conversations out there, Vicki, where people think, when are you going to be done? When are you going to retire? Right? Now,
Never.
I don't exactly, I don't get asked that much anymore, but there's this idea of something that points to us not being able to do what we want to do in life. Now, retiring is great.
Yeah.
That is, a lot of people want to retire and they worked hard and there they are. But there are others that are just kind of getting reborn. Is that the
Yeah.
way you
Oh,
see yourself?
yes. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people thought that I was having a midlife crisis at 50. And that's why I wanted to quit my job. And I'm like, I have so much more I want to do. And like I said, I didn't know I could sculpt at the time when I quit my job. I didn't know I was going to do body prints, and so everything has just come together. But that's reminding me of a story from Women Who Run with the Wolves, and it's the woman with golden hair. These are always brutal stories, but it has a good meaning. So, nutshell version, this lady with beautiful, long, gorgeous golden hair. A man likes her, he's attracted to her, and he asks her to marry him, and she turns him down. And to kind of appease him, she gives him some of her beautiful golden hair. Well, he thinks it's a joke and gets mad, and so he kills her, like
Oh,
like
God.
you would. And so they bury her, or he buries her, and her hair begins growing in the grave, comes out the soil, and turns into this huge field of golden reeds. Well,
Mm,
shepherds come and cut the reeds and turn them into flutes. And when they start playing the music from the flutes, it tells her story. It sings her story of what happened to her. So the moral of that story is our delusional dreams, our gifts, our talents, our, that deep secret in the night that you really want to do something that you have told no one else. It is always growing inside of us, even when we try to bury it or ignore it. And those are our delusional dreams. And so, please, people, do not say, "Oh, well, I'm too old or it's too late. I could never do this." No, those are going to bubble up inside of you. You don't have to know how it's going to happen. Just take the next step, take a class, just try something. When I first started doing clay, I was in Duvall, Washington. There wasn't a formal class unless you wanted to do pottery, and I wasn't interested in that. Um, I just got on YouTube and just started trying stuff. And then finally, when I moved to Santa Fe a year later, I took my first class of how to form a face and a head and all of that, and just kept going. So never say never.
And, part of this too, and bringing this full circle, is to follow the never say never part of this, which also means if we might say it out loud, Vicki,
Mm.
is start saying yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Start saying yes, right?
yes.
Because that's what you're doing. Now, can I put a caveat out there? And maybe
Yes.
you want to correct me on this, but
Okay.
that hasn't always been easy for me. I'm no different than the people listening to the show. Fear, doubt,
Oh, yeah.
really,
Oh,
thoughts that come in. What's the difference though? You and I have tools
yeah,
if we
yeah,
want to use them, right?
yeah.
I put my brain tap on and I need that boost. Or I use a Resemax to help me with my vagus nerve.
Hmm.
Whatever that is, you're an artist. I play ping pong. Let's talk to the audience about the power of saying yes from the eyes of Vicki Todd.
Well, and one thing in Clarissa Pinkola Estes information. She was calling it the quote unquote practice. And part of that was saying it out loud, singing it out
Yes.
loud. And you and I have talked about that so many times.
Yeah.
Voice, I am successful, I am creative, I am powerful. So that is so important. But my mantra that is always in my head, and believe me, I have doubts and fears as I'm writing this book. Some days I'm like, I don't want to expose myself. What if people come back on me? And so, it's vulnerable people. So I always have it in my mind, just keep moving forward, keep moving forward, the next step. And so that to me is just do it, and flip it. If you say, well, if I give up now, okay, what's your life going to be like and how will you feel? Regret, resignation,
Yeah.
you know? So keep moving forward.
Yeah. And there's part of that where you could feel incomplete, or you could feel like, what's happening to me now? Am I going to get it back if I walk away? And then how does that feel? And sometimes you do have to walk away for whatever reason. So I'm not really putting that down. Vicki, thank you so much. Can you please let people know how they follow what you're doing, where you are, and how they also can look at your art? And thank you for today.
Oh, thank you. My website is Vicki World Art, VICKI worldart.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Vicki World Art. And so I show every bit of the process of what I'm making and then to the final product. And so probably social media is the best way to be in the current know.
I love it. Um, Tell me really quickly in a few seconds, tell us about the art piece you have behind you.
Well, this painting is a new one. I'm calling it Meeting Place because in the book that I'm writing, I have fairy tale sections where the ancestors go into their animal forms in the white
Yep,
deer. And so they're in their meeting place in a lush forest.
I love it. I'm going to my meeting place right now. Thank you, Vicki Todd. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
out there. Remember these stories. Please don't take in things that are absolutely not true. Get fired up from the
Fired
inside out. We'll see
up.
you next time.
Thank you for listening to Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art. Vicki Todd with Dr. Pat. Tune in with us each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more simple, repeatable habits to identify the dreams, gifts, and talents you were born with. Expand your mind and believe your dreams can become a reality. We invite you to tap into the flow of the delusional realm with us to make this world brighter. For more information on living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life and to connect with me, visit VickiWorldArt.com.